Hello, and welcome to let's call it the 29th video in the series, Reflections on the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, verse 1, 2, and 3. It really is kind of the conclusion and lessons learned video. Video number 28 was the last kind of official video in this list. Now, for those of you who've been following along, you may notice my blue chair is not in back of me here. I decided for this one, since it was kind of not as formal, it wasn't the actual reading through of everything, that one, it's such a nice fall day out here. I thought I would just kind of come outside and do the conclusion and the lessons learned out here. So here we are enjoying a beautiful outdoor day. I did a quick test just to make sure, because even though we're in a park, there's still traffic along the way, but the microphone that I have here seems to pick me up, okay? And I'm going to have to be doing this a bit more than I normally do because I've got a lot of wind out here, but it is a gorgeous day. Now, I would also, if you've watched these, normally start off with pause, and I think we'll just take a quick moment, and then I'll tell you a story here. So, again, just wherever you are, and here we have this beautiful outdoor space, let's just come to rest for a few seconds here. Good. And as I've said before, on all of these videos, really what's needed is a bit more time. It takes at least the first 2 or 3 minutes for the kind of the force that we do everything with to come to rest. So I promised a story first before this. So it looks strange enough in a YouTube video just to have somebody, sitting here like that. Now, as I said, this was an exercise given by the School of Practical Philosophy in New York City. And when I say New York City, they were located at 79th between Madison and Fifth Avenue, right off the Metropolitan Museum. Very, very, very busy section of town, at least pre-COVID. Everything was obviously different. And the method there was that before every activity, you at least took a few moments to come to rest. And we had these, what were called beginning of term clean up the building. And it so happened, and it was very nice brownstone, as I said, on 79th Street, still there, you could go take a look at it. But the cleaning was thorough. When I say thorough, I mean my grandmother, who, as they say, you could eat off the floor, looked like she never cleaned compared to this. And so we cleaned everything, inside, outside, what have you. And it so happened that, we were a rain or shine operation, and one particular cleanup day, whoever was assigned the team to clean outside the building, and we cleaned the sidewalk, polished the brass, everything. It so happened that unlike a day like today, it turned out to be a rainy day. And none of us, you can't hold an umbrella and clean and polish brass or sweep or whatever. There was a bunch of what I call brilliant ideas here. The first was to take a bunch of black garbage bags and turn them into our gear, our waterproof gear. The second brilliant idea comes from another person on the team who said, hey, we don't have anything for our heads. And being the kind of person that he was, decided that he would take newspapers, which we're going to use to clean the outside windows, and turn them into little hats. Just picture a little boat-like hat. And so we're already dressed in plastic bags. We have these little boat hats on our head. And the way that, when I do this here, I just kind of sit here like this. But when you had a group, you generally tended to be in a circle facing each other. And if you can picture maybe 5 or 6 grown men in plastic bags with paper hats, all standing. We were a lot stiffer. I mean, this should be a more relaxed exercise, but we were a lot stiffer then. And just standing around like this. It was in the days before we all had iPhones and stuff, but if somebody would have gotten a picture of this, it would have been something for the front page of the New York Post or the New York Times. Fortunately, one of the teachers happened to look out the window and see this sight, and I wish I kind of could have seen it from above. And what are you guys doing out there? Because I think at the time the idea of coming to rest before an activity was not as common. We didn't have goat yoga back then, so that idea wasn't as common. Anyway, that's just a little bit of lighthearted story about the rest. Do keep practicing it. It really, really is very useful to take that break. We run, every time I do one of these videos, I run at a high. I started off at 90, I think we're past 120 now. But there's a lot of activity. I've said before, the creation is activity, and that's just the way that it is. But you don't always have to be, in this kind of going 100, 120 all the time state. Okay, on to what this video is really for. As I said, we've concluded, well, at least I've concluded, I don't know if anybody, they're really, at this point, there aren't any even, probably any views other than my own. And I'm not into monetizing this, so I'm not doing whatever things you need to do to drive people to it. If somehow or another people see these and think that they're useful, well, so be it. If not, then that's just the way it is. But for anybody who has actually seen it and stayed with it, and again, that fortitude, that staying with it is the key here. It's going to be really interesting to see how much of this background comes through. I really hope that this microphone is working well. But in any event, first off, thank you for anybody who has been listening in. Second, it's been a long time since I've been to Toastmasters and speaking courses, so the first few videos are what I call rough. First of all, I focused the camera so that you really saw my head like this a lot, and that's really not necessary. Second off, exactly. In Toastmasters, you used to have a person, when you were giving your speech, there was a person counting the ums and just going like that, and eventually I think at 20 ums, you failed that speech. Fortunately, I've gotten a little bit better as I've gone on here, but you have to remember that the format of this whole series was kind of spontaneous talks of what the reflections did. Now, they were not completely spontaneous, not like whose line is it anyway, where you open up the envelope and you find out whatever you're supposed to be at that point. I certainly had put these together. I certainly read them. I certainly studied the words beforehand. But most of the time it was really an adventure, and I think that was the right way to approach this. It wasn't really meant to be scholarly. It was meant to get these words out there. And I've said over and over in the videos about how this was a contrast to all the harsh sounds that are out there right now. And it's really just it's like the buffet. It's like the story of heaven and hell with the people with the chopsticks. The buffet is all out there. Now, if you're just interested in what I'm going to get and you can't, go back in the videos or look up the chopstick stories. If you're trying to just take it in for yourself, you can't do it. It's really about, the feeding others, the care of others that hopefully ran through all of these. But in any event, yes, the videos got better as they went along. I don't know if I would have done the whole series out here. I need to find. It's very funny that being out here, people go, oh wow, the farmlands and the beautiful land. But in actuality, it is still a pretty densely populated area, roads cutting through everywhere. I couldn't just knock on some farmer's door and say, excuse me, I'd like that field way out there so I don't get any noise in the background. So that's all of that. Okay, so we talked about what the purpose of, we talked about the way the videos are done. The next series coming up is going to be chapter 2, as I said, verse 62 and 63. I'm already working on, getting the Sanskrit onto paper, looking at the English translations and going through that. Now, the format of that might be a little different, in that here I had an actual list of words that I wanted to look at. Harmlessness and purity of being, and compassion and peace and absence of hatred. And that was pretty easy to take each of these as one video. The next one is a little bit more thematic, it might be a way of saying it, in that it's looking at how do we start with, let's say you started with all those qualities, right? And you were practicing that. And somehow or another you start this downward slide. Now, One of them was already talked about in the video, which was control of the senses. And that's really where chapter 2, these 2 verses pick up. What happens, and you can just, first of all, go back to I don't know what number it is in the series, but just look for control of the senses. What happens when, as I always say, you're led by the nose, you're led here and there. As I've said, you're so weak that every single thing, you're like a dog in a room full of squirrels. Every single thing takes your attention away, this and that, because I could end up like, oh, I'll go over there, and go, so, hey, I thought you were doing a video, what happened? You need strength. We're all very weak. Forget what Trump is saying about Biden is weak, and I don't know, who knows what Biden is saying about Trump. We're all incredibly weak. We don't have the strength to sit for any. Trump isn't the only one who fidgets more than 2 minutes. That's why I don't really expect a big audience for the video, because nobody has the strength to sit around for 30 minutes and listen to something. I haven't been into a college lately. It's been, I think, our daughter's 10th year anniversary reunion is coming up from her school. But I'm pretty sure that most of the kids sitting listening to the college professor are, boom, 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 and what have you. It's a very fragmented way of existence. Now, the way that everybody always comes back on that is, I can multitask, to which I say, yeah, but not very well, people. And there really are some things that we should wholeheartedly devote our attention to, like driving, people. There's a reason why there's all the anti-text laws. And again, it just lines up so well. We talked about cleaning off the snow, keeping clear of the King's Highway, not harming anybody. You wouldn't need a don't drive in text law if uppermost in your mind is, I'm not going to harm anybody because I'm busy texting, and the next thing you know, it's like the beginning of, wasn't texting back then, Defending Your Life, where he's playing around down there and all of a sudden there's the bus, and there we go. Laws are for the weak, okay? And make sure we understand that the right way. It is not a question of obeying them or not. It's a question of, I have to keep putting laws out there because people have forgotten. They're weak in mind and they have forgotten. And, last night was the first night of the debates, and I'm still not quite understanding completely the Proud Boys, but let's say that there's one of the right-wing groups there. Now, they would consider themselves strong because, they got the guns and stuff. And that's not the type of strength. In fact, you can be pretty weak as long as I got a bigger gun than you. Now, people do consider that an idea of strength. But in this whole series, we've been looking at strength as strength of character, strength of mind, a strong heart, a caring. This is how you get caring and compassion and not wanting to kill people. So that's yet another thing that came out of this, was the whole kind of strong and the idea of what is strong and what is weak. Kind of a key theme that came out fairly soon was the idea that even though these were called the godly qualities, which can be off-putting for people right then and there. First, or spiritual qualities, which some people is like, okay, I don't want to talk about God, but spiritual, that's okay. No commitments there, nothing that I have to answer for. I'm spiritual, okay? There's no right and wrong, and all that stuff. And again, almost everything I'm saying here has been talked about in length, but in a previous video. But where we ended up with this, boy, did I pick a truck route out here. Where we ended up with this is really what we are talking about are human qualities. And yeah, they're called godly and they're called spiritual, but if you have any notion of what being made in the image of God is, well, this would be a chance. And of course, I keep asking the question, why wouldn't you want to exhibit godly qualities? Or as I've asked in many of the videos, why would you want to buy a car from somebody completely dishonest? Why would you want a president who literally cannot help himself in his lying, and as we saw last night, and I've said before, it's all about me. I wasn't talking about Donald Trump in particular, but all of us. Which brings us to another lesson learned. I have tried to keep these as apolitical as possible, but quite frankly, you cannot talk about the qualities of a human being without talking about magnifying and really needing those qualities in a leader, whether it's the president, whether it's your school teacher, whether it's the manager at work, whether it's the king or queen of a country, whether it's your military commander, even the next level up, whatever these are, tenfold you need these qualities to be manifest. And as I've said before in this, it is not just a matter of reading them and going, that's nice, and you close the book up and we're done for the day. It's in action. It's in action. And the reason that it needs to be in action is you may be put into a position where your example is what you're putting out there for people. And just by the fact that people still respect authority to more or less degree, that gives an extra push to be spot on with these qualities. And I don't know what it sounds like here, but it's just fun out there. But to really be spot on with these qualities, okay, including fortitude, including staying with it, including not lying, caring, compassion, empathy. Again, I can go to the dictionary, I can go to the Gita, I read from the Abraham Lincoln Institute for Character, whatever it is. There's no lack of knowledge about this. It's the question of, what are we going to do anything with them? Or is it just talk? I remember back from social studies, which was a good many years ago for me, the gentleman who was teaching that class, we were talking about back in the American Revolution days, no taxation without representation, no taxation without representation. And he said that wasn't really what was behind it. They just didn't want any taxation at all. And the same thing applies to these characteristics. I want to be able to get all the goodies that go with power and position without having to do any of this. I mean, if I can just be me, if I can lie, if I can cheat, if I can steal, if I can say I don't care about the people who are in my care, and still get all the perks, I get the limousine, I get Air Force One, whatever it is. And again, trying not to pick too much on Trump, though Lord knows he deserves it, but whatever the case may be, I don't care if you are in charge of the deli department at the local food store. If you've got 3 people there who are working for you, start there. Don't have to be President of the United States. Start there. Exhibit those qualities. Care for those people. It makes a world of difference. And in fact, again, I've gone into the political arena, but I think it's necessary if you want to have safety, security, a well cared for population, that whoever is in charge is not only exhibiting these qualities, but exhibiting them in multitude. That's why people love Abraham Lincoln. He exhibited them 10 times over, okay? That's what's necessary at that level, and that's why it is necessary to get political every once in a while here, because that's where it's needed the most. But it's also needed, again, if you're in charge of the deli department at the local A&P or Giant or Wegmans, whatever, your behavior should be just as good as if you were the president, okay? You start here and you can carry it all the way up. And in fact, that's how, at least it was when I was working. I mean, there was still some sense of respect for these qualities. And I think that we now come to another of the lessons learned here. And I said it many times in these videos, are these qualities respected at all? If, in fact, you don't respect honesty, plain dealing, truthful dealing, caring about the people. If you're like, nah, screw them. Here's that car that came in. Yeah, I use cars because that's the one everybody can most associate. It could happen when you're buying. It could happen in anything. Any time where you are at the mercy of somebody in front of you telling you the truth, you really do want them telling you the truth and not trying to screw you over, as it were. But yet, we've talked about, again, this is why it's a lessons learned and repeat. We've talked about how it's not really clear anymore if qualities of truthfulness are respected. And again, I have to go back up to the president who lies just, before he's even had his morning breakfast. He's, they're fact checking. And if he said good morning, I'm not sure I would believe him at this point, okay? But you have that example in front of you. And as I've said, it's not just Donald Trump or Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton or Obama, whoever's either had or is running for this office. It's the people and what they expect. And if the current president can say, A1, I paid no taxes, you're all chumps because you pay taxes. Now, yeah, I don't want to pay extra money. On the other hand, you need government taxation to have roads. And here I'm sitting in the middle of, I think this is probably a county park here. Whatever the case may be, it's part and parcel of living in a country that, fingers crossed, still stays somewhat free, that there's a need for taxation. Not because to enrich politicians, but to enrich the population so that you have a place like this to come. I'm sitting around, there's all the things for the kids, there's a tennis court over here, and this is just a small one. This is just local tax dollars. Of course, on a national level, you get things like, the national parks, which are a wonderful thing. But to come up and say, yeah, you're all chumps for paying tax, does not set exactly the sort of tone. On the other hand, half the country thinks that that's right, in support. Yeah, I'm not a chump either. I cheated on my taxes or whatever the case may be. Which, I don't even know if it brings us to another lessons learned on this, but certainly over the course of this, doing the 28 official videos, the canon as it were, it's become increasingly clear that it's not just about Trump. It's not about anybody who's holding that office. It's about the people who think that sort of behavior, that not exhibiting these qualities in any way, shape, or form, is the way. And I've said dog eat dog, and who's to say what's right, and all of this sort of stuff. But if more than half the population of the United States, and I rather think it's not just limited to us here in the United States, if half the population of the United States spends all of their time trying to scam the system for whatever reason, whether they don't believe in government taxation, whether they believe everybody, I know everybody does it. I probably need to post that list. I have it in a shortened form in Screw Tape Returns of all these kind of current sayings. And I have some of them, I'll put them on the website, okay? But whatever the case may be, if you have at least half the population, in fact, probably more, even the Democrats, I'm sure, it's like, yeah, I don't want to, I want to pay the least amount possible. I get it. I never liked the tax bill, I was a fortunate person. I happen to have made a semi-decent salary, and yeah, I hated April 15th. Of course I did. But I never, ever kind of went about it and said, well, I don't want to pay any money. I appreciate the interstates. I appreciate the national parks. I appreciate getting water delivered to the house without me having to do anything, okay? It's part and parcel of all of us living together, working together. It's not the barter system anymore. It's a system of taxation. So, another lesson learned in there. Now, I think those are some of the biggies, as it were. I think the kind of the most disturbing thing, which I kind of started to get out of doing this, is whether or not people value truthfulness, honesty, purity, wisdom, compassion, harmlessness. It's because, and as I said, you cannot get Donald Trump elected unless there's enough people who think that what he's saying is correct. And so my question is, if we've got at least half the population of the United States thinking that lying and cheating, dishonesty, harmfulness, the opposite of everything that we've read. If we're thinking that that's all, if we, at least half of us, if not more, think that that's the way to go, then of course you do get back into the political arena. You get back into how does a country survive with that kind of thinking going on? And again, I did a lot of this in some of the videos. We're talking about, at least in my mind, no difference between the people in the country and the leadership. And in fact, there is, I believe, a quote, every country gets the leadership that they deserve, or that they, and I don't know if it's deserve or want, but let's just go with deserve. So if you have a country full of people who are, spending all their time for ways to scam the system. The joke, I had done tax returns for a while at a large tax return company, okay? And I was talking about this particular pizza place that we frequent, but it's got 2 cash registers up there. And if you pay him with credit card, goes onto the 1 cash register. And if you pay him with cash, it depends, okay? And what does it depend on? How much cash is going to go unreported, okay? And I was telling this story to one of my associates at the tax place, and they said, oh yeah, it's a pizza place, right? I said, yeah, how'd you know? And they go, they all do that. And I don't think it's limited to pizza places. I think there's everybody, that's not fair. It's not everybody. But there's certainly this thought that I always need to put a little on the side for myself. Yeah, the government doesn't need my money. Now, whether we're overtaxed or not, I'm going to go with we're probably overtaxed, but that's because of, wasteful spending, people skimming off the top when it gets to whatever. Again, I'm not here to, nor can any one person fix those ills. I'm saying it's necessary that taxation be there, and it is necessary that people pay into it. The other junk that goes around it is another whole story. Whatever the case may be, and again, I know we veered off a little bit here, every single one of these, whether it's these lessons learned, whether it's the videos themselves, every single one of them all point back to the same place. How do you act as an individual? Because America, England, Italy, Brazil are made up of people. There's different tones, let's say, in each of these countries. America has had a certain tone, but that has certainly been changing over the past 20 or 30 years. But no matter what the country, no matter what the tone, it's a visible manifestation of each of us collectively. Because I don't think my ideas are any different than the person down the block. Fortunately, nobody's come in here, otherwise I'd point to, or that person over there. We tend to have basic ideas, basic understandings, but that, whether it's through very liberal colleges, whether it's somebody just saw an article about not teaching either civility or civics or all of any of these qualities, which are, the separation of church and state, means that your moral character is either hopefully still coming from home, although that's less likely, coming from some religious organization, which is also less likely. So where does one learn how to be civil, how to be honest, how to be truthful, especially as more and more examples of untruthfulness, uncivilness are presented to us each day? And of course you go all the way up to the top and you get an outright liar of a president. I mean, well, Good enough for the president, good enough for me. Okay, this is why it's important to start with the individual, because that's who knows, it can take another 20 or 30 years, even if everybody started today, to pick up some of these qualities and kind of run with them. It doesn't happen overnight, and as I've said in almost every one of these videos, it's kind of like having pollution from a factory. Okay, I mean, there's a stream right over here, and if I went down there and I saw it all, oil, smelled gasoline or what have you, I could up to, and where is it coming from? Now, you need to work at both places. As I said, you need to sometimes clean up the ducts, that have had oil all spilled over them. But ultimately, you have to go back to the Exxon Valdez and, stop it from leaking out of there and get that out of the way. I cannot do anything. I'm not in that arena, nor would anybody listen to me. I can't do anything at that level. I mean, I can vote, and certainly I'll cast my vote. But the real place that the change comes is from every single one of us, people. And again, I think this kind of nearing the end of this particular, anyway, I think it comes down to the question that anybody has to ask themselves is, I don't care if you watch the videos or not, just go through the list of the qualities, go to the internet, read that section there, look at honesty, compassion, harmlessness, peace, serenity, fortitude, everyone, look at them and ask yourself, do I believe that these are useful qualities for me to exhibit, for me to practice, for me to embrace? Because that's going to determine what 20 and 30 years look like for now. Where we are now is from our attitudes of the past 20, 30, 40 years. And really, this whole series, as I've said before, is so that people have a choice. People can see what used to be part and parcel of your learning. Again, civics, a church, a synagogue, a temple that would instill moral values in you. I mean, I think that any country that points to America and says we've become immoral, I don't know if I could disagree with them or not. So the question, I noticed, so the question is, I went through and looked at the ums, the ands, and the question is, but really the question is, do you think truthful, honest, peaceful, compassionate living is the way to go? Okay? And if you say, nope, I'm going to lie and cheat my way because, might makes right, power is everything. We did power. We're going to see a little bit of that in the next series. If you think that power is everything, was the golden rule, he who has the gold makes the rules. If you think that that's the entirety of existence on this planet, yep, nothing I can do for you, but you know what? You might have a little tougher time, or you may not, if everybody gets to put, but it collapses in the end. And I think maybe that's the final lesson learned from this, is the godly qualities will not lead to the ruin of both you and those around you, and ultimately the country that you live in. But if you tend towards the demonic, and I read those, and I'll probably start the next series, if you tend towards the demonic, it may be a good show for a while. Maybe you get to be president because you fix the laws, and so what? He says, I'm going to be in there for a 20, 30-year run, or however long Putin keeps him going. But so what? That will collapse. That will collapse under its own weight. And it collapses too because as a human being, you bring about your own ruin. So that's, again, final lesson learned, intro to the next series. I really do want to explore those two verses of how by by lack of sense control, by lusting and coveting everything that's around, you take this downward spiral to the ruin of yourself and, unfortunately, a lot of people around you. So that's it. That's my lessons learned, my final comments on that. I again leave you with the biggest one of all. It's up to each of us to decide if we think any of these qualities are worth embracing, are worth living by, are better both for yourself and those around you to live by. I cannot answer that question. That's a look into your own heart, and you answer that for yourself. You know where my vote is. Choice is up to you, which it always is anyway. Okay, people, so going to keep enjoying a little bit more of today out here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Good luck. Take care of everybody around you. We will all appreciate it, and most importantly, those in your immediate family will really, really appreciate it. Love to all. Good luck. This is not easy. Good luck. And probably be at least another month before I can finish the next series and start posting them. But there's enough material in this one to get you started. Okay. Love and peace to all. Bigger, bigger, bigger. Okay? Oh, yes, I have to mention the cat videos. Of course! Don't forget the cat videos, okay? Until next time.